Bom dia a todos.
Good morning, everyone. We will start one more session of KM 2020. Be very welcome, everyone. Above all, I would like to thank the partnership with Uninove University and the whole team who is providing us a fantastic experience. We are streaming this event online worldwide. And I also would like to thank for Glossa Soluções em Idiomas and our interpreters who are here with us doing the interpretation into English. It's a worldwide event. Emers. So for this session, we will have as for the team the intelligence, technology information, and knowledge management. And after lunch, we will be focusing on two sessions about the public knowledge management and two sessions for cases for knowledge management and three lectures about intelligent cities. So please be very attentive. Parallel, we have two events and you need to choose whether you want to watch it live. So now I will give a word to Professor André, who is the coordinator about the intelligent technologies and knowledge management for KM 2020, and Professor Marcos.
Muito obrigado, professores.
Thank you very much, professors. Now you have the word.
Obrigado, Fernando.
Thank you, Fernando. Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to thank for you. You are in the different locations of the country and abroad, and Mr. Gaspar, thank you. Thank you for all the panelists, and I hope this is going to be very productive.
Como já disse, Fernando.
So, as Fernando has said, the intelligent technologies and knowledge management, well, even more companies and professionals have been applying IT information in a more efficient and intelligent way. So during this panel, we will present practical cases for the management of the asset for knowledge and different companies. But before, I would like to talk about our program, MBA, in which has this alignment. So this program for post-graduation, the PPGI, has as objective the scientific qualified professionals, scientific research.
Vocês poderão notar a partir dos relatos, né?
You can see that we will have reports from our colleagues. So, what is the objective of this course? Well, we would like to have innovative professionals, methodologies, techniques, tools, and courses, so then we will be able to efficiently act in an academic environment. And also scientific knowledge. We have molding, intelligent systems, and IT and management knowledge of management.
Não há desenvolvimento estanque da pesquisa. Então, é por isso.
We would like to stress all of that. We also have all the scientific aspect for the creation of solutions and different actors on the market. So now Professor Gaspar is going to speak and provide the information about the dynamic of our session. Thank you. Thank you, Professor André. Good morning, everyone. Once again, be very welcome here, KM 2020. It's a huge event that reunites the community of researchers, practitioners.
Painel do
so, in this panel,
no KM Brasil 2020,
KM Brazil 2020. We have as the foundation the application of intelligent tools and the management knowledge, and that are implemented in different organizations. So according to what was announced for you, we have the programs. We will have the presentation of 4 surveys focusing on results achieved in the respective organizations. So we will have 4 researches. And we will start with the first presentation, Professor Renato Sassi. And the following, each presentation is going to take 15 minutes of exposition. And I would like to propose that once every panelist is finished, we will have 5 minutes for Q&A.
No final, também faremos
And at the end, we also have a closing,
outra amarração, para que
wrap up.
A ideia do todo, né? Que
so
foi...
then we will have the general idea of what was presented. Now, Professor Gatto, with the specialist system in the support for the classification of criticality of the software version. It's a national scenario, and he's going to be able to tell us how the research was developed and how it has impacted in the real life of the company that he is a collaborator at. Professor Gatto, please. Good morning, Professor Gaspar. Good morning, everyone. Let me put the presentation here. And you can confirm whether you are seeing it. Is it appearing for you?
Sim.
Yes.
Perfeito. Então minha voz também está bem? Todos...
Okay, perfect. So everybody can hear me, right?
Bom, a nossa pesquisa.
Okay, so our research started
de trazer a
right before.
Começou uma situação dentro da empresa.
In such a situation within the organization that I work at, and we took over the responsibility for software. We were responsible for updating softwares for our main customer. We have a legal customer. It's a public sector company, and it's the main supplier for this customer. Initially, we started in a project expectation according with the company, and all the processes executed should be digitalized. So this way, the company would be able to provide the software and distribute to the locations that would use this software. Initially, we started the work and we sought on the understanding of this process, and many users didn't have access to it. It was very poor. It was required a new functionality. The software was not presenting the results, and that has shown that the process was very poor, was very weak. So then we map out the process and we brought to the current situation. So now we are proposing a new change and mapping out this process for the standard of distribution of software. We will map out this process.
The managing process should be structured. So we had a framework application best practices so that we could design this process according to the best practices in the market. So putting all of this together, we could have a process structure and we could understand everything. That should be scanned. This process should be scanned. So we started doing it based on that framework and we had a very positive result. But during the processes, we saw that we could improve it. So we started an improvement process with a very known best practices project, and we used the Six Sigma project so that we could eliminate some errors in the software version process. By doing all of this, we could put the process together with very accurate results, with high execution success in software version. But on the view of this new situation, there was something new. Apparently, the software versions that existed before were similar. And we could see a great difference between software packages. And the analysts responsible for updating this version from the different client servers, they classified the software versions according to their subject. So there were people that were senior, other ones that were starting, and then there were different points of view. So the software version that used to be simple, apparently not simple, inside of it, we had the responsibility to develop the value, and it could be the cause of some problem in the distribution level. So to avoid it, to have a best decision making, the client started practicing this software version with a low subjectivity. And then other problems happened. We have solved the best practice situation and another one. The classification subjectivity made harder the decision-making process. How could we do it without impacting the client in a negative way? So our research objective was to understand if it was possible to resolve this subjectivity. So we managed TI processes with this intelligent technology, with AI technique, which is the system expert way. We had to maximize this technique so that the subjectivity was reduced in the classification, so that we could have a more directed results and have correct decision-making without harming the client. So this documental research we did, and experimental also, 5 parts were done, 5 steps. The first one, implement, Agile, and Six Sigma. And the last phase, which took longest, was structure the technology, this AI technology and structure in the expert systems, and do it inside the organization so that we could remove subjectivity and have decision-making improved. So I talked about these stages, these steps, and the main motivator that we could work on is that the client hadn't implemented any AI techniques before. And the client was very impressed when we announced this research, where we were in the company's infrastructure in the organization. And the client was very excited on it, and the company authorized us to do this research within the organization. And we could develop an expert system, and we could gather the expert knowledge and add it into the system with all experts involved. And we tried to bring this expertise into the system so that we could use classification and the know-how and the expertise in the system. This classification varied a lot. So we talked to the employees, we tried to understand the knowledge, and we had many meetings so that we could assess the knowledge and have an alignment. What would be a low classification, medium, high classification within the organization? So going on from that, we chose the technology for the export system, and we inserted all this knowledge through rules, inference rules into the expert systems. And then we started testing on a database in order to homologate it in the company. So by doing the tests, we saw that the critically had different results. The software packages were divided into different scenarios that weren't contemplated by the specialists before. They had some had low complexity, the other ones had higher complexity, but with a differential that make them both, of course, differently. And on the same way, in all different kinds of complexity. And this has shown that the use was great, so to speak, in the processes in the company. So we started inferring the export systems when the software packages have arrived, and we saw these export systems that generated a classification. So there were variation that people couldn't see at first, so they didn't predict the kind of difficulty. So when the process was happening, we saw the export systems and the previous versions that weren't contemplated by the classification started being classified by the export systems. So everyone could learn the differences within the different software versions that could be available for update. So then we ended the first phase, the fifth phase. That was the expert systems phase, and we could get coherent results. And then we could, with the production basis, and use it on this basis. And the company and the client got interested on it, on the application. And then we could infer this database, which was larger, and there were many variables that weren't contemplated before in the homologation phase. And we could see that the pace was the same from the prior phases. When there was variations, there was no answers for it, but when the database were being analyzed, people could learn the differences between the different software classifications. And after some time that these export systems were applied, it started getting coherent results to what the experts have said before in the meetings. And this had a consensus between among our area, and we could show the company and the client which was the critically correct software version. It was low subjectivity and could be applied. When it was critically low, it was one thing, medium and high, another kind of critically, so that they could avoid any problem and then favor the release of the software with 100% success level. And then having a positive result of the application of the AI techniques on management, TI management processes, which was the software version release processes. And the main contribution beyond the academical content and the literature review on the research and the corporate scope, the developing company and the one who was using the service with the main client, they could have a mutual interest in commercial deal, and could have more confidence and trustworthiness between them within the organization, which is the correct software version that before couldn't understand. In the social scope, I can say that this developing company works alongside with the society by digitalizing processes, physical processes. Let's say the client, which was the São Paulo Court, and these processes were digitalized, and the software that can make these processes, in the court, was made with highest speed, and it made easier the processes in the court. So the success of everything could make the company as a whole could show better TI processes and the application of an AI techniques. So summing up, this whole research took 2.5 years in my master's degree program. So it had started before the master's degree. For 4 years, there had positive results in the corporation, and then a very positive result for the client, which is the São Paulo Court.
E é isso aí, pessoal.
Well, that's it.
Obrigado, professor Dacyr.
Thank you, Professor Dacyr, for the explanation and respect to this team, and also this direct discussion according to the results. Well, remembering that, please feel free to send your questions. And I just would like to start this Q&A regarding this session. You, as a professor from CC, do you have any... Professor Gaspar?
Fazer breve comentário.
I'm sorry, can I make a very brief comment? Yes, Renato of the Oriente. Thank you. I think that it's very important to emphasize because KM is very important for knowledge, right?
Primeiro que é possível
And,
associar
well, it is possible to associate best practices
métodos com uma
and methods with artificial intelligence technique.
O segundo ponto foi selecionado o sistema
It
especial
was selected with specialists because by having an additional technique,
um software chamado Dendral, né?
1965 Dendro, it is very simple to use and it's very reliable,
Milhares de empresas.
and it has been used in various companies. And as for the fundamentals, it's a retention of knowledge. So we had an interview with the specialists, and all the knowledge is retained,
Inferências, né?
and we have all the interferences,
Né?
and is going to have the problem solving option and the decision making process. And it's very important
O conhecimento
that the knowledge of specialists
nesse sistema
are
especialista,
all stored in this system.
e esse conhecimento
So there is a consensus,
além de
and it is stored. And besides this system and the decision making process,
serve também como
well, it also serves
para novos
as a support
profissionais, novos
for
colaboradores
new professionals,
em cima
so then they will be able to train up on that and will be able to learn on how to use the software, because it also serves to train new professionals, new staff.
os pontos que eu gostaria de
This is
ressaltar.
the comment, my comment, before you initiate your presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Sassi. It was very important, your comment towards the
Relaciona aqui com a pergunta do
So
professor
now
Martins, né?
we have a question for product Martins. Can this technique have another application For instance, if I have any issue in my company, will I be able to adapt it in order to minimize the risks?
A estrutura de utilização do sistema
Yes,
especialista ela pode
the
ser
structure can be for any knowledge domain. And we have that for the software version
ali pesquisados durante todo o decorrer da pesquisa.
that were researched, and we have used it for as a parameters
Para a liberação de versão de software. Porém,
for
você
the release of the software. So you can execute the same process by raising in specific indicators of that specific problem. And based on the indicators, you will be able to work on roles
resolver aquele problema
and then to have the solving,
de uma área para
the
atuação.
problem solving.
Pode ser aplicado a qualquer área de
It
conhecimento.
can be applicable to any area,
Quais indicadores serão utilizados?
but you need to have the knowledge of which are the indicators that are going to be used. So you can reproduce to any area. You can apply this technique.
Ou um processo de gestão de TI.
It is not implied into IT software, and also risk management,
Não, riscos corporativos,
automation, corporate risks. You
ferramentas
can also use the support of other tools,
de probabilidade de impacto para gerenciamento de risco.
probability, impact. You can work in conjunction. You can use these tools. So then you will be able to elaborate the role. You can use it without any problem. Thank you,
Posso
Professor Gaspar.
ponto, desculpe.
Claro.
Can I reinforce another thing? Emphasize, Felipe,
2017, né?
there
artigo
is a work
do pesquisador chamado Wagner, e ele coletou 311
and
estudos
there was 311 case studies for specialist systems in various areas. And this is in the article of Dacyr. But we have that for the education, and we have specialist systems
o terreno,
exploring
as aplicações são as
other territories. So we have for different
vale ressaltar é que ele
areas, and it's important to emphasize that it's a very restricted domain.
em
So
função
a software plan specialist,
especialistas
it stores the knowledge and is for only software plan. It's not going
empresa teria que
to be used by another company.
base no
It's
conhecimento
a specialist system
da empresa.
for the company.
Bem, obrigado. E lembrando a todos,
Okay, thank you.
as pesquisas
And
apresentadas,
all the researchers presented
defendidas
and all the theses, they are all available online, so you can check all of them.
por
So,
conta aí do zelo com o horário, né? Nós passamos agora
moving on with our agenda, now we will have the word for Professor Fabio
pelo professor André Librantz, que vai apresentar os
and
resultados
Professor André Libras,
da tese de doutorado
who
dele,
will present the results
a apresentação
in Sabesp company. The presentation is an approach of artificial intelligence and for water treatment processes.
I can't hear. Oh, okay. Do you hear me? Yes, now we hear you. If you would like to share your presentation, be my guest, success. Okay, I will share it. Can you see it? Yes, we can see the cover. So first of all, I would like to thank Uninove Invite for my participation, for selecting my work in KM Brazil, and I would like to highlight this PhD research started in the undergraduate engineering course with scientific initiation, and it was expanded. monography in my undergraduate. So then I had my master's degree program in Uninove, and I ended up expanding it to my PhD studies. So my research started about in 2011, 12, and it's on up to now. And I have been expanding the theme all the time. As Professor Gaspar said, the theme is an artificial intelligent approach to optimize water treatment process parameters. So there are many industrial processes where water treatment ends up being a very complex process, and it involves many variables, physical, chemical, and they are very complex. And why develop this research? So first, I'm going to talk about water treatment concept. We cannot use water directly from the river because there are many other harmless substances there. So this amount of water needs to be treated in a water treatment plan. Doesn't matter which technology they are going to use, but these undesirable substances need to be clean. So we need to eliminate the organisms that...
A tese de doutorado é a etapa de coagulação. Né? O que consiste a etapa de coagulação? Essa etapa é dosado um produto químico na água chamado coagulante. Esse produto químico ele tem a função de desestabilizar as cargas elétricas da sujeira, né? Então começa-se um processo de limpeza aonde essa desestabilização elétrica ela faz com que as sujeiras, né, os elementos de suspensão comecem a se unir para que os processos posteriores à etapa de coagulação retenham essas substâncias. E esse processo é um processo considerado não linear, multivariável, complexo. Existem N variáveis que influenciam diretamente na dosagem de produto químico. Né? O que é a dosagem de produto químico? Nada mais é do que uma proporção do produto químico em si em relação ao volume de água, né? Ou seja, uma quantidade de massa...
And we have an amount of mass. We will have an analogy for it. We also use bags for that specific amount that we can see here. It's the same as a dosing for each scenario for water quality. And this research has as an objective to investigate data in order to have the model training for the dosing of coagulant. Because the water treatment process has different quality scenarios. And what is that? Well, we call it, well, there are solids, microorganisms, organic load from leaves, and organic. So I have different scenarios in which this requires to identify it. And what was the proposal of this research? To provide a database to Sabesp, a historic, to select all the data and the good practices, apply it to the process, select all the good practices, so then I would be able to provide an intelligent model. But why developing a model using artificial intelligence techniques? Well, today, there are two traditional methods for this dosing, and they need constantly to have the dosing of chemical products. So then the first one is the test trial. It's a simulation for the water treatment. So we select different dosings of chemical products, and we have a technician who will simulate different scenarios for that specific quality of water. And that is considering all the materials. However, that takes a very long time because there is a whole preparation, a whole process, and we have to simulate this process. So then we have the value for the process, and that has to go into an optimization, which corresponds to the ideal dosing. And there is another method which is called measurement. We use equipment, we check the water load, but it's very costly, it's very expensive. So we have two methods, and it's very expensive, and the labor is also expensive. And there was the need to include artificial intelligence to it, and also the good practices of the process. So then we would be able to provide references. And this research has an explanatory approach. I've collected all the data and information. So then I would be able to have all the roles. And the methodology is quantitative. So then it's possible to measure the intelligent gain. And there was also some techniques for analysis. And we selected physical, chemical, pH, reservoir level,
índice pluviométrico, vazões de produção,
indexes, and so on. But why we had that analysis? Well, we analyzed, evaluated all the relevant parameters, and we used it to detect the scenarios. So, what are the scenarios for the water treatment plant? And why do we have that? Well, there are two main times for the water treatment. We have the rainy season, which is from October to March, and the dry season is from April to September. You have a very low indexes, and rainy season, there is an accumulation of rain. So once there are a lot of the rain, then the water quality is getting worse somehow, and it might contain more elements to be removed. So then we need to check all the scenarios and the good practices, the best values to be used for this model. So we used MATLAB and Weka softwares. And which were the main results? Well, we selected 14 attributes for the initial of the research. We have used only 5. And a database of 29,916, or 1,048 records.
Da coagulação.
And we also had parameters for the calculation. Well, it's a retrofitting process. For instance, we have a chemical product, but we need to know how the process was, because we have the amount of the water, and if it's stable, I might have different dosages. So if I measure all the parameters, then I will be able to use the process. I will be able to reduce the amount of chemical products, and I will be able to assure good practices for the process. We have Cotia, water treatment plant in the municipality of Cotia, and it supplies 400,000 inhabitants. And we have used this plant. Well, for instance, we have forest, we have a reservoir, and we have developed in this thesis a methodology for data selection with artificial intelligence. So we have this methodology, and we have all the correction of the pH of the water, and so on. So there was a methodology
onde eu aplicando todas essas técnicas eu conseguiria selecionar dados.
So then I would be able to select data. And what are the main contributions? Well, this model was implemented in this plant, is in the pilot phase. Well, we obtained some results. We had 111,000 tons, and the reduction of costs.
In the pilot model, there have been obtained a possible reduction of 99 tons a year. So this is the model in the water treatment plan, where the technicians are the one who are going to do the testing. So more advantage. If I reduce the use of the chemical product, I'm going to have iodine, which is a sub-product of the water treatment, where this is going to the sewer treatment plant, which is going to be treated and going to the sanitation place, where I am with less iodine, I am reducing the environment, and by reducing the chemical product, there is less onus for the supplier, and then the professional and logistics cost will be reduced. So this product will be transported with trucks, and there is the reduction of the mold in the process. So this is the practical way of this research. And this is the reduction of the impact in the environment. And another detail is the model, which has been replicated in other water treatment plants, especially the smallest one, where they are changing the way they operate, and they get better results. And especially the small water treatment plants. And this is what I had to present about my research. And thank you, everyone, and thank you, Uninove, for the invitation. Thank you, Professor Cosme. If you can stop sharing, I thank you. I'd like to ask something. You almost eliminated the gap from the question when you said the smaller water treatment plan in your thesis. But when you talked about these small water treatment plans, can it be applied to any kind of treatment plan? Yes, any kind. It doesn't matter how large. I talked about the small ones because this research has an AI application in industrial plants. And the processes need to have another level. So I can make the process to go alone, independent on the fountains they are connected to. I have higher autonomy if the water treatment plants are medium-sized or the big ones. So in the safety level, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but there are more advantages on the small water treatment plants because it can work itself, and I'm going to reduce the operational costs. Okay, I would like a compliment, because if we do not belong to your company, your water company, so we do not know how large is your water treatment plant. But Professor Cosme, I imagine how exponential this solution will be. The results that you showed in the last slide, the Autocotia plan has already had nice results, and we can make it more environmental friendly. And I imagine how the company realized the climbing potential for the whole operation of the Sabesp company, which is already a very pragmatic company in Brazil and worldwide. Professor, I had full support on my research. Sabesp has supported me to replicate the technology to other plants. And there's a director board that we have been promoting using this new methodology, and it's going to be part. It already is part of the DNA of our company. And why? Sabesp is looking for something new, different from the traditional methods, because they want a higher autonomous level. There's no one working there. Everything, the process is done remotely. And this coagulant dosage method brought this autonomy in our scenario. And I am fully supported by the company in this plan, in this process, and I am going to continue this research. Oh, thank you so much, Professor Cosme. Congratulations on the presentation, on your results. And as you can see in these panels and the other ones, and the ones we are going to have later, we at Uninove, we try to correlate our students, the members of our programs, in their research, even if the academic and the scientific method, their research, given the nature and in our proposal, they have this applied scope. So let's go to the third panelist. with Professor Ivanir Costa was their guide. So it's about Pro Agile 29110. Is based in Scrum and Lean principles. So please, Professor Nilson, you are on the floor. You have the floor. Success. Thank you, everyone. Do you see? Can you see my presentation? Okay. Thank you for the invite, Professor Gaspar. Professor Ivanir, thank you for the collaboration. And let's talk about my proposal, which is a PhD proposal related to the Agile process, adhering to the ISO 29110 standard based on Scrum and Lean principles. So the contextualization and the research problem, we have to relate this to the previous 40 years, where during this whole time there were proposals and use of lots of different methodologies. And we have been the classical methodology, for example, the waterfall method versus the agile methodologies. The classic ones have disappeared many years. I mean, the agile methods have become important in the last decade. So the big problem is the planning of models, talking about complex projects. There are lots of complex projects, and there are other methods that share the same complexity. The agile methodology with small teams and autonomous teams, they have low formality and reduced documentation. It's that very same problem. Let's program it now and document it later. So the agile methods, and especially the Scrum ones, they have been incorporating the Lean principles when they develop software, in the software development field. So this research was defended last year's. So the certification, the Scrum certification and the Lean certification in the present year was big. And want to prove that we were right in the beginning. Another contextualization, another problem is about norms and models. So Brazilian companies know the CMI model, which is done to middle-sized and big companies. And there are about 150 companies that are certified in this model. On the other hand, there is another model, the MPSBR, which was developed by Softex in 2005. And this model has been evaluated for 400 Brazilian companies up to now. And recently, more precisely in 2012, this ISO standardization 29110 was made for micro enterprises, which is called very small entities. These very small entities, it's an entity up to 25 people. And these 25 people can be considered in the department of even the project. So we can certify the set to up to 25 people.
So the problem of the research was, is it possible to develop and implement an entire process? And what if it's adhering to the 29110 standard based on Scrum and Lean principles?
Esse foi o problema de
adapting to
pesquisa.
software. Well, this was the problem raised. And
No
as
desenvolvimento, a
we had the
implementação
development, the implementation, and the validation of an agile process that was baptized as 29110. It was
aderente à norma
incorporated to the agile practices Scrum.
Em termos de método de pesquisa
So
e
in terms of the methods and the application of the experiment, we used systematic literature review. It's more known as SLR. And we also had an action research into VSE companies, less than 25 collaborators. So this research was conducted in 2 organizations in such naturality.
treinamento no processo das
We
equipes.
had the training of the teams, we had the Pro Agile, we had it all designed with all collaborators. So then we had a verification of the implementation for the sprints of the pilot processes. And we had all the processes of the Pro Agile. So then we had a data collection. We obtained the data through the observation of myself during the execution of the sprints, notes, meetings, interviews of the project collaborators, and informations that I've got from seminars. And we also had the discussion of the results founded. So these were the activities conducted for the both companies that were selected. However, the results, they were good results, but they were different in the organizations. In the company A, organization A, I had a Pro-Agile process using all the templates.
Templates foram feitos
The
de
templates were designed on Doc or Excel. And I distributed to the companies, and the result was the following. The Scrum team acted in a very collaborative way. So there was a consensus in the conducted tasks. We also had the evolution in the efficacy of the accomplishment of daily meetings. It was very poor at the beginning, and then it evolved through the sprint. There was also a very good actuation of the Scrum Master in such a way that there were no obstacles for the accomplishment of the work. And the backlog of the first sprint was very huge and resulted in a delay. It was very visible through the Kanban, which was a tool that we have also used in our Pro-Agile project. So this visibility provided an action to the team. So then we were able to include one more individual. And in the first company, we had a better communication with all people involved in the process, and the increase of the motivation. So these were the main results that we've got and we were able to raise. As for the organization B, there is a difference. The organization B was already using a tool called Azure DevOps. And we've got the first part of it. We got the Pro-Agile project. We introduced it using and customizing it in the tool. That is, most of our templates and the Excels we were not using any longer. So then we presented another study for this tool. We inserted the activities in the tool without having the schedule, and the evolution of the Kanban and Wordle was also treated in the tool. And it was very different considering the documentation that we had. There was an improvement in the agile process. I was able to see an activity for monitoring of each sprint, and I was able to incorporate in my process. So the on methodology served for the result of the company to provide an improvement in the process. So according to Azure DevOps, is a very collaborative tool that contributed to the lean principles that rate the amplification of knowledge and strengthening of teams were disseminated. And the Pro Agile is standardized the way that the team work. It was implemented, but they didn't have any process implemented at that time. So that's why the Pro Agile was standardized. As a conclusion, here we have the most relevant ones. There was an improvement in the communication and an increase in the collaboration among the teams. And also the communication, because there was a need for the construction of auto-management culture in such a way to convince the team that they are their own managers. It's a project management. Also, we have a project manager and you have a project team. So within this process, everybody are managers. And this is very difficult, but that has to be disseminated. And the implementation of the organization B has shown an importance to find tools, computing tools that contribute to the implementation of the process. It was very useful for the acceleration of the dissemination of the process. And we can replicate it to other tools on the market. The Azure DevOps is only an example. And automation has become very important. And it provides a better visibility to the team towards the monitoring of the project.
As a main contributions and applications of our thesis, of our dissertation, we have a book that the researchers will write it, Ivanir and I, to describe these processes to the Brazilian companies, and we are writing it in 4 hands, and it's going to be put together now. There is a ProAgile 29110 brand, and it's being registered as a brand in INPI. And there are article development also, contemplating lots of results with positive results. And the ProAgile application, we have had the opportunity to apply this process on a 3rd consulting company, and a 3rd company through a consulting business. So this is a theoretical work with practical application in companies. And in Brazil, so that you know, we have more than 5,000 companies that are software developers, which are considered as VSE with less than 25 collaborators. So we have a myriad of applications for this process. So I need to remind you that a company that implements a process like this company can apply for an ISO standardization, and it is worldwide accepted. So this is it. This was my research. I thank you immensely for your attention, and I can answer your questions now. Thank you.
Pois não, complemento? À vontade.
Can I compliment? Okay. Congratulations to the presentation team. You have been modest with your results, Nilson, as usual. I'm going to say something that is very important to be clear. Implement agile methods. It's been going on since in the beginning of the 2000s. And companies, depending on their cultures, they are adapting different methodologies according to their reality. What is missing since this very beginning is the priority the companies consider. Okay, there are pressures from the market for costs, for changes. But there is a pressure to be agile. We have to do everything fast in order not to miss their scope in the market. This is not only something Brazilian, it happens worldwide. So this agility concept, there are some problems regarding quality. And what we must say is that ISO standardization, its basis is quality. What does this normalization effects in companies brings to companies, especially the small ones? They are practicing quality. They are adding quality into the agile methodology. Okay, the agile methodology, the agile manifest has been going on since the beginning. So they have to be fast. So being agile, it's their principle. They are not super favorable in imposition step by step to verify the quality. What we see that there is a testing guy in the team, and over these 40 years of experience, this is not enough. Testing, it can be considered high quality because it happens in the middle of the process or at the end, and quality has to go since the beginning of the quality needs. So in the beginning of this standardization where you propose this process, so they have to bring it to the agile methodology, the intrinsic quality the process must have without missing out the agility. So remembering Professor Nilson's last words and the comments Professor Ivanir has just made, so I am going to talk about the applicability of the ProAgile results as a method and its importance alongside with the VSE companies, especially the Brazilian one and the ones that export software, applications, games, and they have to be true competitors with the international scenario of countries like China, India, which are great software producers. Congratulations to you both, Professors Nilson and Ivanir. And the method that you have developed has an application potentiality which is huge. Continuing, thinking on the time constraints, I need to hand over to Professor Kazuo Ohashi, that was my orientee in the master's degree, and he was brave enough to continue with me, to bear with me in his PhD studies. And in his PhD studies, we still need to define a little bit of the first contribution and results of his dissertation, which is recommendation systems for supporting the seller and dissemination of knowledge in small and medium-sized companies. Thank you all, Professor Gaspar, Uninove, for the invite and the opportunity to show my work for you. So I'm going to share my screen as usual. And I'm going to talk about what I have been doing on my PhD studies, my PhD program. So my research work is recommendation systems for supporting the seller and dissemination of knowledge in small and medium-sized companies. More specifically, the system that I have been proposing, it has to be used in small and medium-sized product distributors, distributing companies, I mean. So there are a lot of companies with a very large product portfolio. More specifically, the work where I work on, the company I work on, which has 35,000 products. And it's impossible for a salesperson to know every product in this kind of company. And it's very common to have new products going on. It's 200 products that are being launched every month. So it is impossible for a salesperson to know each and every product the company has. So this problem happens also in distributing companies that work with food and pharmaceuticals. Because nowadays we have a huge myriad of products. So the recommendation system is already known for everyone in this scenery from the left. They are not new in the market, these recommendation systems. And the first ones that are more famous is the recommending system of books in the Amazon website. And we can realize that the product the consumer sees it is different from user to user. So the list that I can see is different from the one you can see. And today, these recommendation systems are highly used in the video demand. For example, Netflix also shows to every user different suggestions of movies or series. They are different from user to user. Spotify is another example, which is the music app. Spotify suggests the songs according to what the user is going to listen. So, the use of the recommendation systems, it is by using this system incorporated to sales systems where the buyer himself, the user himself interacts with the system, which is case of the picture on the left.
We have here a man holding a credit card and buying a pair of shoes, as you can see on the screen. So in this case, the system of recognition might suggest similar models or anything related to the product that the person is buying. And the idea is to have the same application, but in a different scenario. In a scenario in which you'll be able to have the the figure of the sales rep, for instance, here on the right side. Here we have the salesman and the SFA sales system, Salesforce automation, in which the salesperson is going to be effectively having the order from the customer. And the buyer, the client. So, considering sales reps, and this is very used, the recommendation system will recommend products. The system recommends a product, and the salesperson will interact with this system and will recommend the product to the buyer. And the buyer might accept the recommendation or might not accept it. So that's why we have founded that once we have the application of these systems, it's not being widely used due to technical issues, for instance, to measure whether the recommendation was accepted or not. It can be communicated, but the computer might not accept it. Or the salesperson might also ignore. And it's very difficult for us to have this measure. However, we see that this system can help salesperson if there is a wide range of products. And this system is going to act in a sales pipeline, which is very similar for the CRM systems. And here, with the sales pipeline, for the sales automation, it is used in order to have the trackability of the path of the client once the client is a visitor, and then the client becomes a lead, and then an opportunity. So then at the end, it's going to be the customer itself. So these systems are used, but we have also found that recommendation systems are not very used here in the bottom of the sales pipeline. So this study that I am conducting aims to verify which would be the structure of a recommendation system for this specific case on the bottom of the sales pipeline, because the main objective is to develop how it would be the recommendation systems. So here, we first had a systematic review, and we didn't find any recommendation for this automation system. So the second step was to verify how to do the recommendations, because the systems, they are all based in relation to the structure of the database and information that each company has. So the system might recommend a specific type of product in a different way from, for instance, company A and company B. So we had a method on how to know the definitions and whether the salesperson would think that this system is useful. So we also check the type of recommendations that the system might provide, and we developed a POC, which is a concept test. And I brought here a screen, which is the main screen from the Salesforce. And here you can see how it is going to act in order to help to support the salesperson. Here, the representative is going to choose the product, and number two, the system returns what the salesperson is looking for. And the big differential of this project is the third area, the recommendations. So for instance, as we can see here, the number 4, that upon the first search, the system has brought 3 new recommendations. And here on the side of the recommendation, it also brings some little icons showing why the system is recommending that item. So for instance, this type of recommendation, the product recommendation, might vary. And in this case of this company, we have 4 types of recommendations. This system might recommend and show as a first choice, according to the customer's choice, a complement product, or a person who has bought a specific product also bought another product. And beyond that, it is also possible to know the competitors, whether the competitors are buying another product. So the system returns the information, and it can also return information about new products. For instance, customer has asked for a specific product, so it also provides the recommendation. And specifically in this case, we are able to know the pricing in comparison to the competitors. And the system might alert the salesperson that there is a deal, a sale, or a better price. So once we have the 4 recommendations, considering that we are in a second phase of the thesis, we had research with the representatives in order to check the viability of it. So we also validated the process of the system for recommendation. And at this moment, we are analyzing all the research data, and everybody thinks that this system is very interesting because, well, it makes people and customers search for products more easily. Because as I have said, for instance, auto parts, we have thousands of auto parts. So a system that can recommend, and it's based on learning processes, will be able to suggest in a better way, so then the salesperson will be able to have a better ordering and sales process. And we also can extend this method of recommendation to other types of distributors. For instance, other distributors that might have this type of difficulty. Because once the salesperson is on the computer and generating a revenue, this would be very important. So this is my presentation. So I'd like to thank you, Uninove, for the invitation. Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Fábio Kazuo. And I just would like to compliment your presentation, saying, actually asking you, because, you are also acting in the company. What is the expectation? Because you have a direct contact with the company owner and the managers. So I'd like to know what is the expectation of them, because I know that they have sponsored you in this search, in this survey. But what are the expectations towards the dissemination of knowledge, the increase of learning curve, the sharing of knowledge that can help salesperson? What are the expectations that you were invited to try to support along with your research and your perspective? Well, the idea arose according to knowledge dissemination with a large company. I'm also a marketing manager, and to have the knowledge dissemination of products, we used traditional marketing tools, email marketing, social media, and we also have seminars. We have manufacturers who have seminars, and we were feeling a difficulty to build that, because once the representative is in front of the customer and is face to face to the customer, sometimes they forget about specific things, or they forget that they are having trainings, and they were selling products but without having this expertise. So it's a new option of dissemination, a last mile. So the salesperson will be able to consolidate what they should know, and that has to be very important. And the last mile makes the whole difference for the sale conclusion, right? Yes, because our representatives, they are in front of the retailers, because they never recommend something once they leave the stores. They forget. Okay, I just would like to have another question here with Professor Nilson. A question made by Diego Candal. Well, is there any structured knowledge management for any companies in your experiment? Has it influenced for the Pro Agile project? How was that? Professor Nilson?
I think Nilson is not here anymore. Do you know? Can you answer? No, none of this doesn't happen in most VSCs. They do not have the KM department structured. I could participate with him. And the problem is this. The agile startups, they had to resolve the problem very fast. They are not worried with this kind of thing. They work together, and knowledge ends up being disseminated with the team, and the team ends up naturally acquiring it. So the knowledge is tacit, it's not registered. So there is an event which is a retrospective of each sprint. which the team, depending on the size of the print, they have to discuss what went wrong and what was correct, and they have to analyze it in order to correct the mistakes or keep using what worked. And this is still made in an informal way, and it's intuitive. Some tools, as Nilson talked about, many companies use Gira in Brazil, and there's place for it. The last company which I used the Agile methodology, we tried to implant it, but the teams do not want to insert information there because in their point of view, this is slowing them down. So this is a matter of culture. KM and the quality which is internalized in Agile process, it has to be done in a long term. Because the proposals inside the Scrum, when this happens, the method is going to be heavy, and it's going to push people away because it gets being different from the concept of the Agile methodology. People do not want to take long when they are using a software. It has to be as simple as possible. Because if it isn't, in the future, people have to put another version together, but they can't take too long. We have to be very careful. Thank you, Professor. Now, moving forward to the end because of time constraints, I would like to talk to Professor Kazuo again. How can we deal with competition tool-wise, thinking of knowledge management beyond the company's limits? Oh, this is a very philosophical question, right? Yeah, let's think of it. Think about it. I think that every company has its competition. And the competition is very, very high worldwide. And using recommendation systems and AI, this is what is going to make a difference for your company. Sometimes it's the same product, but what is going to make a difference, the best practices. And the sales person relationship with the client has to be the best one so that the client can recommend the product in a better way. So if companies think on the client, they are going to finish with the competition. They are going to be outstanding. So another pragmatical topic. What is the commercial potential for this kind of solution? Do you believe that researches like yours has potential to find investors? One of the things we wish to do as the thesis objective is to have FAPESP sponsorship, which the recommendation system in this case, so that the salesperson can use it. It's not very well explored so far. So we hope to deal with this, to work in this area moving forward. And it's being used towards the consumers, and it's very well used. And in the B2B case, it's not very used so far. So I thank you, I thank all the panelists. I thank you for your research, congratulate you for your research, and congratulations for putting your research into practice. And to finish, Professor André Librantz is going to finish it, and I say thank you, the audience. Thank you, Professor Gaspar. So as a former professor, Fabio's professor, your work is very interesting, and this sanitation, basic sanitation is very important area, and I thank the other panelists as well, especially because on your brief presentations you could show how you are putting your research into practice, because applying your scientific findings is very important. And not only the scientific results which have impacted important journals, and which is what we expect with high-level programs, we still have the technological development, which is Professor Nilson, Fábio, Dacyr, anyway, Kazuo himself as well. And I am going to say about the brand registration of Professor Nilson's method, along with Professor Ivanir, Professor Fabio as well. They register their software, they are patented, and they are worried scientifically, and they are worried in developing technological products. And this is on the DNA of our program here in Uninove. And if you are interested in having a master's degree program, a PhD program, if you have the will to apply what you have seen here, I invite you to take part on your entrance exams. I am going to publish the proceedings with our partner in the event. And I have to remind that Uninove has many advantages, not only the quality that have been presented through the programs that the researchers that have been here, and we have a scholarship, 100% scholarship if you develop your research with us, to have your master's program, your PhD program on. So I invite you all to take part. Thank you, panelists, and thank you, audience.